Like a backstage pass to the world of fly fishing travel, this is Waypoints, the podcast of destination angling. News and events, helpful travel tips, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from some of the most seasoned and experienced names in fishing travel. Waypoints is presented by Yellow Dog Fly Fishing, the industry's #1 specialty travel company and the fly shop for the world of fly fishing. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered for your next fishing adventure. And now your host, author, photographer, and world traveler, Jim Klug.
Welcome to Waypoints, the podcast where we explore the journeys, destinations, and stories that shape the world of fly fishing. I'm your host, Jim Klug, and today's guest is a name that might surprise you for a podcast that focuses entirely on fly fishing. Former White House Chief of Staff, Congressman, Mayor of Chicago, U.S. Ambassador to Japan, and rumored presidential candidate in 2028, RAHM Emanuel, a political powerhouse whose idea of escaping chaos isn't a locked door in a D.C. office, but rather time spent in a flat skiff chasing permit in the Yucatan or on a Montana river casting to rising trout. RAHM is a passionate, dedicated, fully addicted angler, and we're thrilled that he's taken time to join us on this latest episode of Waypoints. RAHM Emanuel has, of course, been a guest on numerous political podcasts, where he's always capable of offering his opinions on the current state of American politics, talking campaign strategy, or dissecting political spin. But on this podcast, we're instead going to focus on the overall concept of his obsession, the healthy kind, as it pertains to fly fishing. We'll talk about what happens when someone used to power and major league policy finds peace and perspective through simply chasing fish with a fly rod. We're going to talk travel, tackle, outdoor-related politics, public lands, clean water, and what it means to be an angler who has been uniquely shaped by years of sitting in some of the most influential rooms on the planet. Now, when the subject of politics does come up, I want to reiterate that this podcast and our main sponsor, Yellow Dog, always does our best to remain apolitical on most issues, something that makes sense in today's business world. We usually try to avoid red versus blue positions on, well, most topics. That said, we do weigh in on specific issues that directly matter to this sport. Issues such as public access, the importance of public lands, resource protection, and of course, clean water. So if the simple discussion of these topics offends you, well, too bad. Because if you're an angler that cares about the sport, and if you care about the places and resources fly fishing depends on, then you should be willing to discuss, debate, listen, and learn as much as possible about these subjects and ongoing concerns. So with that said, our guest today, RAHM Emanuel. Waypoints is sponsored by Patagonia. To bring their gear to life, Patagonia is motivated by relentless curiosity and a passion for the wild. They evaluate hundreds of materials, build dozens of prototypes, and spend seasons punishing them in the world's most extreme conditions. The work is the guide, and Patagonia never tires of exploring, learning, and improving. Be sure to check out Patagonia's new Swift Current waders, repatterned and redesigned for bulk reduction, reduced seam stress, increased maneuverability, and improved repairability. Made from recycled materials without intentionally added PFAS, Swift Current waders move better in and out of the water. Well, RAHM, great to have you on the show. We finally made this happen.
Thank you. Trial by error.
That's right. Well, you have been busy lately, a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews, all sorts of platforms. Do you ever listen to the podcast that you're on or the interviews after the fact? Are you someone that, like myself, hates the sound of their own voice?
I hate the sound of my own voice. I hate my laugh. That's what you have a middle child for, and then tells you everything you've done wrong.
That's good. It's a good filter right there. Well, how's your fishing been lately? I mean, we're sitting here recording this episode here in Montana. You have a place that sits right on the banks of a legendary river. The view right now is fantastic. You've been getting out on the water this summer, enjoying it?
Oh, yeah. I had 3 separate trips, 2 weeks each. Had some great epic times out here. So I've been having a great fishing year.
Well, I know.
In fact, it's so good that I have now a group of friends that say, we're tired of these photos. They think I'm chopping them.
Well, that means you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. That's good. Well, I know from mutual friends that we have, people like Craig Matthews, Joe Dill Schneider, others, that fly fishing is very much your thing and has been for a long time. I reached out to a few mutual connections that we have as we were setting this episode up, and all of them were pretty quick to offer up stories and anecdotes about times they spent with you on the water. They all had one noun in common, obsession.
Yeah, that is, you could probably say that about anything I do, but yes, but on fly fishing. It's actually, you and I are doing the interview. A dear friend of mine, Paul Levy, just passed away, and he was the one that introduced me to fly fishing. Go back to 2003.
Nice. Well, that was what I was going to ask is, where did the love begin? So early 2000s, and that's how you initially found your way to the sport, is through Paul?
Yeah, Paul. We just did a memorial service for him. So one of the things, he has a single child. I have 3 kids. He's very much about traveling. I was very much about traveling. And we decided we wanted to show, and Paul likes planning trips. I like doing trips. I don't like planning trips. Anyway, so our first trip, doesn't everybody go to Argentina for their first fly fishing?
They should.
Yeah. And so we went, and we had a great time fly fishing and on the trip as a whole. And then kept doing it and kept coming, and I was coming to Montana. And then that became, that's the start of the obsession. I will say, so on our, Amy and I get married 1994. 1995, we do our 1-year anniversary here in Montana. We go fishing. Want to try it. And about lunch break, I say, I caught 14, you caught 9. And she goes, you have ruined the entire experience. So I bring sport back into fly fishing.
Always a competition, right?
Not always, but yes, with an Emanuel.
Well, you were obviously the White House Chief of Staff during the Obama administration from 2009 to 2010, arguably one of the most stressful pressure-filled jobs in the world. You've also served as mayor of one of the largest cities in America, a past ambassador. Of course, you're in Congress. I have to imagine that for someone who's navigated these kinds of high-stakes political situations for decades, there's got to be something therapeutic about fly fishing, about time spent on the water. Do you find peace in the sport in a way that politics obviously might not allow?
Yeah, I love, now, different experiences. To me, there is nothing, you can use therapeutic as nothing as, therapeutic would be a good term. Standing in the water, having the water rush on you, correctly casting to an area that you've read the water, hooking a fish, and then as it goes down, you taking the balance and the water's running on you, that fish is running. To me, and you don't want to be too strong, you don't want to be too weak, it's just the whole experience captured together. I will tell you one, I think it's a funny story, so without going into all the background. I happen to be, we have this one thing at the White House. I'm leaving that afternoon. I come in fishing. President Obama calls me because, without getting it divulged, we have a disagreement. And I'm on the water, and the Secret Service says, the president wants to talk to you. I'm like, so we arrange a time so I can do a private, secure call. And the president starts going in on this topic that we have a disagreement about. And I said, look, Mr. President, I said, I am not going to convince you, and I am fishing, and you're not going to convince me. I said, and I try to respect your golf time. I want you to respect my fishing time, because right now, the only thing that I'm doing is working through on the fish my feelings about that topic. So it is a very therapeutic place. It's a place where there's nothing as restorative to me as the water rushing on you while you're balancing, but also casting and seeing and reading the water and casting correctly. When you do it, there's nothing as rewarding.
It all comes together.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, was the president respectful of that situation? It was like, oh, I get it. You're in the water. Go.
I think it was. I don't think so. I think it was when I said, I leave you alone during golf. I want you to leave me alone during. So I knew, but we picked it up when I got back, right where we left off.
I love that. Well, from all accounts, RAHM, and what can easily be found online, and when people read about you, you had a somewhat hardball, no nonsense political style that you've been famous for many years. You have somewhat of a reputation for being fairly intense and driven in a lot of situations. Does that intensity ever bleed into your fishing style? I mean, aside from counting fish with your wife on the first fly fishing experience, does that bleed over when you're on the water?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think I could box that part of my personality and put it aside. This is the only thing that does help me get the balance in that effort. And there's nothing also as rewarding or, I don't know, spiritual than doing it also with a group of friends. So when I'm mayor, a group of friends and also my older brother, we would come the first week of May and float the Missouri. And there was a group of us, and we did it for 8 years, so which Paul was a part of, Skip Herman from Chicago was a part of, Paul Bagala, who I would bring on, my brother Ezekiel, who would pick up, and there was a group of us, and we did it every year, and it allows you to leave all the stress behind and just as a group of guys go fishing and enjoy and have that time. There's a funny story. So Ball and I are on a boat together, Bagala. I'm in the front of the boat, and I'm just nailing it. I mean, I'm not saying good. I'm nailing it. Boom, boom, boom. And Paul is just strikeout after strikeout after strikeout. So I'm standing up, and Paul's sitting down, says, like, forget about it. And I say to Bagala, I said, hey, Paul, can I ask you a question? I got a fish on the line. He goes, what's that? I said, does my ass look good in this waders? So Paul got a wood frame after that trip. And on the wood frame how's my ass look in these waders? And put a picture of me holding one of the rainbows that I had caught and stuff like that. But that's the type of experience you get.
Oh, and
there's
with
nothing,
buddies.
Yeah, nothing better.
Absolutely. Well, off the water, and I guess I'll frame it in the context of now fishing, 20 plus years, being obsessed by the sport, all the spiritual moments you talked about in the water. Off the water, when you're obviously focused on politics and policy, has this hard-nosed approach that you've always had mellowed at all lately through fly fishing, or has politics in general now become so aggressive across the boards that by default you've become the guy that actually seems calm these days? What do you think about that?
Politics was always aggressive. Now, there was a respect that I think has diminished. The idea that somehow that politics at another time was a genteel sport, and I don't mean to use sport, but a genteel activity is wrong. There was a respect. And I was saying to somebody the other day, actually, I happened to do CNN yesterday with Anderson Cooper. So I'm coming back from a trip overseas, fly fishing, Brazil. We've been up in Agua Boa.
Great destination.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get word that President Bush is 43 is going to be coming to my congressional district to honor a school as a blue ribbon school, one of the schools. We're landing 5:00 a.m. I rush home, take a shower, and at the 7:30 bell at the school, I'm there. And President Bush looks at me, head cocks back, and goes, I got told you were coming back from a trip. I didn't expect you. And I said, Mr. President, you're the President of the United States. You're honoring the kids of my district. Of course I'm going to meet you here. And I appreciate you recognizing how these kids have done, et cetera. And simultaneously, besides being a congressman representing that district, I'm chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. My job is to flip the House, which we did in 2006. So we're political rivals. He's the Republican president, or the president of the United States, who was a Republican, and I'm head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And after we tour the school and et cetera, he says, jump in the car, let's talk. And I spend the day with him. And now, again, my clock's all screwed up and I can't keep my eyes open, whatever. And we're talking politics, and he loves politics, I love politics. But that was a respect. So I say that story and that anecdote while we were competitors and rivals politically. There was a respect. And I think that part of politics, the respect part, is what's different. I don't think we can go back, and I'm an avid reader of history and American history and stuff like that. It's not like electoral politics in the past You look at things they said about President Buchanan during the campaign, et cetera. It wasn't a genteel activity.
Always been a blood sport.
Yeah. But there was a understanding that the mission was America and your political opponents were not your enemies. I'll give you one other anecdote, and this comes on the example of the murder, that's what it was, of Charlie Kirk. And I talked about it, and you can edit this out if you want because of your viewership or whatever, but when President Trump talks about hating his enemies, etc. So I lived with Bill Clinton. I worked for him as senior advisor with the bombing in Oklahoma City. And it's a big piece of his turnaround for his reelect, et cetera. But he goes to Oklahoma City 4 days after the bombing and infamously says, "We will be with you, America, as many tomorrows as it takes." I went back, and again, somebody can pick up the research and say I'm wrong. But I went back and looked at it. Nobody in journalism referred to him that the president was going to a red state or he was going to a state he didn't win. And today, if somebody go to 9/11 when President Bush goes to New York, nobody said New York City post, and he has infamously this great speech on the rubble with the fire chief and his arm around him. Nobody said he's going to a blue city. We have allowed our politics, and I have dear friends in the Republican Party. I was texting this morning with a Republican congressman, and is it a rivalry? Yeah. Is it a political kind of sport where we conflict? Yes. Was there a respect that existed in the past? And is that lost? Yes. And I've contributed to that. I know that. We all have. And therefore, we're responsible for pulling back from this precipice that we're at.
Can it be done?
Yes. It's human will. I actually think the American people know that this is not healthy or right. Doesn't mean that they don't. I mean, again, I don't want to take on President Trump, but given where we're at, the idea that there's a meme of a president in a crown flying and crapping on people, I think they know that that's just not right. And again, I don't come to this with clean hands. So I know where I have fallen short of my own ideal that I think is right about politics.
Well, as we said when we first walked in, interesting times for sure. Sure.
I don't mean to say this, but that's the understatement of the year.
Yeah, it is, no doubt. Well, RAHM, since you first took up the sport, I mean, you've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of really cool places to fish. Tell us about some of your favorites, the ones that have left the biggest impression on you.
Well, I love Montana. That's why. But so if you go around the globe, there's Argentina, there's Brazil, there's Chile, there's New Zealand. I tried it also in Scotland. Just the weather wasn't great, so I wouldn't even call it. I would not call because I don't want to get in trouble. But I also been up in Alaska. That's not a foreign. Everyone else. That's that's part of the Big 50. But it's a distance.
But
okay?
you're not wrong in thinking of that as a different kind of destination.
I will tell you a funny political story one day. But anyway, I've been to Argentina twice, Chile once, Brazil, New Zealand twice, Alaska once for fishing. Although the governor owes me a free trip because I did him a favor, etc. And I'm going to cash that in soon. There is a whole host of things. One, in New Zealand, you helicopter into the gorge and you fish. That is just, you walk in 2 miles, you're climbing over boulders. It's just a unique experience you will have. At least I haven't had it. Maybe somebody says, I just have never experienced it anywhere else. And it's a rawness of, in your mind's eye, what fishing is about. And I mean, I'm talking about climbing over 12-foot boulders, climbing up, holding the rod, getting in the water. And you're doing this for 8 hours to catch a single fish.
Oh, yeah. You're hunting.
Right. Yeah. Now, my last trip, not to pat myself on the back, my shoulder's hurting right now. I caught 5. So I was very, very proud.
That's a big New Zealand
Yeah,
trip.
that's a big trip.
Yeah.
That's a big day.
Yeah.
It made up for the first 2 days where I struck out. Then now there is a place, a national park in Patagonia that is a lake that is a formation from ice glaciers. And I don't think I'm making this up, but it has like 80 feet visibility. And the rainbow, they're like PhD students, because the moment they get hooked, they head down to the lumber at the bottom and they wrap themselves around like, dare you get me?
Yeah.
And it's like unbelievable. So you have to know how to get them so they don't bolt 40 feet, 50 feet down to the bottom of the lake. That was an incredible experience. There's also the Copper River in Alaska was now I say that because I had a momentous moment. I was just standing in the middle. I have this beautiful shot. The guide took it where the fish is jumping out of the river, totally vertical, and water's dripping it out just straight up, and you're standing water's at basically your waist, and it was epic. That moment was epic. That fish particular was epic. So there's been great experiences. The peacock bass in Agua Boa was just different.
Yeah, they're bruisers.
Totally different. And the cool thing there was also the kids got a chance. They were young to go fishing, and they kind of got into it. There was another one, a small little river area in Chile that we went that was off the charts too. I wish I could remember the river itself. We stayed up in a cabin and stuff like that. That was really great.
I love the answer to that question, because whenever someone asks me, like, well, what's your favorite place? It's like, well, where do you start?
I know,
like,
forget about it.
Here's a dozen that I love. I mean, that's a hard one to answer, right? Because having one favorite.
I do want to go back to Alaska because I feel like that was a great experience. I got it once, and I would like to go back. That is the weather can make it a roll of the dice. So you got to hit it.
For sure.
Yeah.
But, back to what you said a minute ago about, obviously Alaska is part of the States, but I always feel like it's the kind of place you should have to have a passport when you go there, because it feels, so exotic and so different that I can't believe it's part of the U.S.
I would just say this. I think the people in Alaska like you to have a passport to come into.
You're not wrong on that. That's for sure. Well, when it comes to your destination angling over the last 20 plus years, RAHM, I mean, you now kind of travel specifically to fish. Obviously, you've done a lot of these great trips. But have you become more adept over the years at building fishing into some of your professional travel, where you can sneak a day in here and there?
I was ambassador to Japan for the United States for 3 years, and I jump off to New Zealand the first year, and then right before we're packing up to leave and return back stateside, I just say to bolt and take 4 more days and stuff like that. So people know about the passion, so they're like selling me, you should go to this country and you get to fly fish. So, yes.
Perfect. That's good. That's a good skill to develop for sure. Is there a dream destination that you haven't gotten to yet? I mean, again, that's a loaded question because it's like, where do you start? But is there one thing that's on your radar?
Yeah. Mongolia. I've heard spectacular things about that. I would love to try to do that. And I was actually, the first trip to New Zealand was because the timing for when people say Mongolia specifically, I think, is around Labor Day, September.
That's a late summer, early fall fishery.
I could not, because of the work, I couldn't pull it off. So New Zealand at the end of the year became the alternate, and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
So,
well, Mongolia is worth the wait.
Is it?
Oh my God, it's spectacular.
That's what everybody says.
And it looks, when you're there, I mean, it feels a lot like what we're looking at out your windows here in Montana. It's got that same kind of similar vibe to it, and the landscape. It's spectacular. One of the neatest places you can go. So it's good that's on your list. You need to make that happen for sure. Well, do you have what you would consider, RAHM, a favorite species as far as trout, tarpon, something else?
Oh, no.
Anything with fins.
I do want a favorite species in the sense of fishing, or just species in general?
Yeah, just as far as what you've caught in the past or what you want to catch, something that, again,
I do want to I want to go a day where I can go just do cutthroat because of everything I've heard about their fight. And I haven't had that. I've had rainbow or browns with a cutthroat, kind of a hybrid.
Yeah, the cut bows.
Yeah. I want to experience a pure cutthroat.
Yeah.
That's what I want to experience. I want to experience the fight. That's what everybody's been telling me I'm missing. So
The big ones are something.
Is it true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is
Especially the big
it
ones.
an embellished story or an accurate story narrative?
No, I mean, I think the neatest thing about fishing for a cutthroat is you're fishing for a native species, right? That, as much as we love brown trout and rainbows, I mean, they're introduced, right? And it doesn't diminish how great they are to catch and how much we love them. But when you're going for a native cutthroat, especially a big one, in their, and it's an indigenous species in their waters that they've been in for, tens of thousands of years, if not longer. There's something special about that.
All right, so I'm going to call him out here. Craig Matthews has promised me a fishing trip. I want him to listen to your podcast of a place he knows. He don't want to tell anybody. I don't even know where it is. I think I'm going to get there blindfolded.
Craig's good at that. That's important.
He knows where. I said that is my dream. So Craig, if you're listening, you owe me that trip, and I have not forgotten. I don't have any short-term or long-term memory problems.
Well, there is no one in the world of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem that knows the cutthroat fishing like Craig Matthews does. So you're in good hands with Craig.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Well, you were talking a moment ago about fishing with friends up on the Missouri. These days, if you can sneak out for a day here and there, do you love fishing solo and just kind of losing yourself in it, or do you prefer fishing with groups of friends?
I like fishing with a group of friends, but I want to be left alone while I'm doing it. So you're good at lunch and dinner, but don't get between those two times. I like fishing. I mean, I'll go solo, like I have down here. I'll just, if it looks nice or whatever, I'll just suit up and walk down and hit my favorite holes here. But there's nothing like a group of friends. So at the end of the day, you catch something on the water, it's 17 inches. By the time you have dinner, it's grown to 20.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
We are such liars, every one of us. Yeah.
All fishermen.
As I say, it's a shop 20.
That's right. That's right. Well, RAHM, in all your years of politics, have you encountered other political figures who are passionate about fly fishing?
Well, Dick Cheney
Yeah.
is passionate about fly fishing.
Yeah. Well known for it.
The late Donald Rumsfeld, who had a place here, was passionate about fly fishing. There's a couple, I don't know if I would call him passionate, but Doug Burgum, the former governor of North Dakota, who's now the Secretary of Energy, he likes fly fishing. Hold on one second. I want to go through my list, make sure I haven't missed anybody and said, how come you didn't raise my name? But those are kind of the ones that come first.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, Vice President Cheney, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, all three of us were chiefs of staff, so that may say something about what we think about both the sport and the people we work for.
Or it might say something if that's on your goals for the future to become chief of staff, you better be a good fly fisherman.
At Camp David, there's a pond. That's where Dwight Eisenhower would practice his casting.
Yeah, there you go. I wonder if our current president's doing that.
No, because on the presidential cabin, he had a 3-hole golf little putting.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's interesting. So my younger brother is as passionate about golfing as I am about fly fishing. I've never golfed. I've never held a golf club, etc. But the same kind of lost in the singular task, measured out by hitting either the putt or casting right to it. That same kind of obsessive singularity exists in both activities, which is why people in stressful, not that everybody else's life isn't stressful, but in high intensity stress, choose one or two of those sports for their activities, I think.
Yeah, good release for sure. I ask you about other passionate anglers in politics because at least here in Montana, campaign season rolls around and every single candidate has the obligatory photo of them standing, holding a fly rod, basically saying, look at me, I'm a sportsman, I'm an angler, I'm a hunter. They're dressed in their blaze orange, but difference between posing for the picture and actually doing it, no doubt about it. Have you ever talked fishing with any other politicians or diplomats when you've been on the road where all of a sudden you make that bond and they're into it?
No, there's no. On the last trip to New Zealand, I had dinner with the Prime Minister. Now, why? Back when I'm elected Congress, the Prime Minister of New Zealand happened to live in Chicago working for Unilever. That was his private sector days. He came to Japan. The ambassador there, who's a friend of mine, asked if I would get together. We got together, and the Prime Minister and I hit it off great. He said, if you're ever in New Zealand, call me. So okay. So like a year and a half later, I called him. He said, well, I have it's not going to work. I'm going to be in the Southern Island. You're in the Northern Island. I'm fishing. I get a call, and the Prime Minister says, well, I happen to be up in the Northern Island. A great chief of the Maori, which is the indigenous people, had died. I'm going to be there. How about dinner? I said, fine. I'm staying at a bed and breakfast. I convinced the people that they were a little, I think, taken aback that the Prime Minister was showing up for dinner.
Like what?
Anyway, my middle daughter says, whatever you do not force the Prime Minister to sit there to go through photos of your fly fishing. That is obnoxious. So I said, can you just text him, say a voicemail to my daughter saying that I didn't do that? And he goes, no, let's do something better. So he does a video, like a 3-minute video, going, Alana, I have no idea why you have a problem. Yeah, of course, your father showed me. We went through all 9,285. So we had an evening because he was comparing the New Zealand rainbow and brown versus Montana or other parts of the States and stuff. So he loves fly fishing.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's the story.
Well, I love that. Well, we all know that the majority of Americans today believe that the political situation in D.C. is a mess. We know that. There is no doubt.
We don't have to debate that.
We don't have to debate that. We don't have to go deep on that.
That's a given.
It's a given. But there is no doubt that we're seeing the impacts of this government dysfunction when it comes to the things that so many of us care about. So many of the people that listen to the show care about conservation, our wild places, public lands, all of these things that are pertinent to fly fishing, right, and to the outdoors. I mean, are there politicians in D.C. who are dialed into the outdoors? I mean, does it get talked about, or is it just kind of so far down the list with all the other issues right now that nobody's really paying attention to these conservation issues at this point in time?
Well, I don't want to make a broad sweep because I'm sure, and I haven't talked to all of them, so I don't want to assume just because I didn't talk to them, they don't care about it. I think I would give them the benefit of the doubt that if you're representing a Colorado, a Wyoming, a Montana, a South Dakota, North Dakota, you care about this because your constituents care about it. You may not come down on the issue the same way that some of us that quote unquote think of themselves as either conservation or environmentalists do, but I would assume that they do and they care. They're stewards. I mean, this gets back to the earlier topic, which is you're a steward of this moment. President Obama used to say this, and I think at first I used to cringe, and now I think it's the right metaphor and analogy. You run your race. When you're done, you hand off the baton, and the other person runs their race. And your job is from the moment you picked the baton up to the moment you drop the baton off. Have you improved the time? Have you improved whatever is not your legacy, but this special gift called America? And when I was mayor of Chicago, it's kind of the mindset I had as it related to education, related to the city. And I'm sure there's people representing this state, Montana, representing different parts of the country who see their stewardship the way they see it. We may disagree about that conclusion, but I give them the benefit of the doubt that they see themselves as good stewards.
Do you believe that fishing in the outdoors in general can be bipartisan ground when it comes to conservation?
Yes, except for when you're fishing with me.
Okay. No bipartisanship there at all. Yeah,
No,
I love
just
it.
as long as I'm catching more fish, sure. But if I'm catching fewer, no.
I love it. Well, I've got a couple of insider questions that I need to ask you about.
Okay.
A couple of things we need confirmed,
Okay,
before
go.
we go deeper on any conservation policy. I'm hoping that you can tell me if this is true or not. So Here in Big Sky Country, many of us remember when President Obama visited Bozeman. In Town Hall in 2009. While he was here, it was arranged that he would spend a few hours fly fishing before the event, because what's more Montana than being out in a drift boat and doing the whole deal? Did you have any influence on the president's decision to try fly fishing while he was going to be here?
I had the greater percentage goes to Jim Messina, Senator Baucus's chief of staff. I had a small piece of that. There's actually, so in the White House, like say the president does a trip, they'll hang photos of that trip on the stairwell in different parts of the White House. There's the famous photo where Obama's got his hands like a touchdown because he caught the fish.
Yep.
I think he was supposed to, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I know. He was supposed to go to Odell. And because of weather and everything, they couldn't put the helicopter down, Marine One. And so he didn't go. I don't remember where he went, but so I'll take 10 to 15%, but not greater. And if I claim greater, you can call me offsides.
Well, so this is where I'm going with this question. So,
but I also wanted to be clear. While I was on that trip and then I broke off, I did not want to be with him fly fishing. That is not what I wanted to do. So much for my ecumenical sense of getting together.
Right.
No, that is not what I wanted to do.
Well, our good friend Dan Vermillion was actually lined up to guide him, and Dan tells a story, and this is where I need some confirmation on this. So, the location where they were going to fish got changed at the last minute because the weather was horrific and the lightning was really an issue that day. And so Dan is basically told, hey, we've looked, you're going to go to the East Gallatin, which is really close to the venue, tiny little creek. And as they're on their way out the door to fish for a couple hours on the east, someone from the president's team hands Dan a rod and says, hey, it's very important that the president fishes this rod. You know, it was a gift from whoever, but he needs to be able to go back and say, hey, I fished your rod. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I took it to Montana. So they hand Dan the rod, and it's a 9-weight. And Dan says, beautiful rod. I just don't think it's going to be applicable for the waters we're on. I said, it doesn't matter. The president's fishing this rod. So Dan said he fished the East Gallatin with a 9-weight that afternoon.
Don't know that to be true or not true. Don't even know that, but could find out, but I don't know that.
Dan said a lot more fish were hooked than were landed because 9-weight, a little bit of an overkill for small trout. But
exactly.
Dan has a great story. And that picture you're talking about where he has his hands in the air, it's a classic photo. Yeah, very cool.
That hung in the White House.
Well, second story that I need confirmed, and you can take a pass on this one if it's a touchy subject. You're totally allowed. What is the story with you as a young politician sending a dead fish to a pollster? Am I allowed to ask about the dead fish story? I know that you talked about it.
All right, here it goes. Yeah. So it's now mythological in the political world.
Yeah.
So 1988, young buck. I'm political director of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. It's a presidential year. And President Bush, so there's a pollster. He does a lot of races. And the candidate, the Democratic candidate, is in Jack Kemp's seat. So if we win it, it's bigger than one seat because you're symbolically flipping a senior member of the Republican Party seat. Dave Schwartz is a Democrat, county assessor. He's down 36, down 24, down 16, down 12. And he had said that if he gets into single digits, he'll take a second mortgage out and we'll finish off the campaign 2 weeks to go. He's down. The race is narrowing. We get a pullback, and we go from down 12, if we thought it was single digits, second mortgage, to down 18. We go, that's it, it's over. The campaign manager 4 days later redid the poll, realized he polled the wrong district, and the part of the district he did poll, we were down 6. And we missed that window, lose the race by 4 points. I'm the political director, but we send the pollster, there's a service, a dead fish in a box. He goes on holiday. I say we because I'm not the only signature, but I am the senior member of the staff. He goes on holiday, and they leave the box on his desk for 3 weeks. So a dead fish is on his And he comes back, opens it. Now, I think I get points. Not only did I send it, I signed it. So I wasn't hiding from I think the note said something to the effect of, it was an awful year working with you. Thank you. And there's 6 of us signed it. Anyway, he then writes a single-space 4-page letter telling how horrible I am, et cetera, and thinking that I would be embarrassed. I publicized the letter. And
your stock probably went up after that.
Yeah. It's that. Now, this is 2025, you're telling me. That was 1988, and that story has grown in importance of who as a character piece. So I did send the dead fish, and I'm damn proud I sent the dead fish and signed it.
It's become a legendary story.
Yeah, it's a legendary story.
Well,
even when I get over to Japan, they know of this story. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I know people have brought it up. You were on David Letterman, and he asked about it.
I
think, but what no one has ever asked you, because this is a fishing podcast.
I have no idea what the fish was. It's a service. No, I don't.
Okay. See,
but I know one thing.
Yeah.
It was dead, and it was on his desk for 3 weeks in a box. And that box was not cold.
Oh, God. And I was going to ask if it was a wild fish or a hatchery fish, but I guess we don't know at this point.
I think the key thing. Now, let me say 2 other things. One, I don't know. Somebody found the service. But I did not know sending a dead fish when I sent it. What I learned was in the mob, that is a symbol of how you say you're going to be a target and you're going to be killed. So now I'm kind of really proud of what I know.
It's Chicago politics. Yeah, hey, let's go. Well, right now, Ram, one of the biggest hot button issues in conservation and outdoor recreation has been this push to include the provisions for the sale of public lands, the sale or transfer of public lands. It was in the last congressional legislative package, the last effort led by Utah Senator Mike Lee, something that all of us here in the West were paying a lot of attention to. It was defeated, thank God, but the fact that the effort was so close to being successful and it got so far down the road where a lot of politicians thought it was a good idea to sell off these public lands, kind of terrifying, especially to those of us that love to fish and hunt and be in the outdoors. If these sales were to become reality, this could obviously threaten millions of acres of forest and rivers and wild places. This is so key to so many Americans because the public lands belong to all of us, right?
Well, that's how you get the word public in front of land. Yeah.
And once they are sold off, they're gone forever. We don't get them back. My question to you as an angler and someone who loves the outdoors, how do you personally define the value of these public lands, and why should every American, whether they fish or not, or their outdoor recreationists, why should they care about keeping these lands public?
Well, one is, so let me break that down. I think there's 2 parts, is preservation of the public land, so the public, not just somebody with wealth, has access. I do love the fact that here in Montana, if you're on the water, you can go, even though, quote unquote, the water like right in front of this house is, quote unquote, my water, but if you walk up, or float down.
Yeah, the stream access law.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that's a great law. That's not universal across the West.
No, not at all.
I think says something about Montana's political heritage. One is public, and then 2, which is not part of that but is important, is the stewardship once it's public. So there's also keeping public land, so generation after generation have access to something that regardless of your position in life, economic position, you can always experience. But what's left out of that, which I think is important, is the maintenance and nurturing of that public lands for its quality to stay world-class. And I think that's an important part that gets lost in whether the public lands becomes private.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you surprised? And I know that when Senator Lee and his cohorts, brought this issue up and inserted into the reconciliation bill, they thought, oh, what a great way to have a little cash grab here. Were you surprised by the backlash that this effort generated?
Let me give you one caveat. Not caveat, but now I'm ambassador. Now, Senator Lee and I agree about 2% out of 100%, maybe. But we work very closely. There was a U.S. Navy officer who was jailed. 2 Japanese died, et cetera, et cetera. And I worked he's a Utah resident, very closely. I got him out of prison, back to the States, etc. And Senator Lee was very complimentary on the Senate floor about my leadership and stuff like that. And we disagreed a lot during the process. But the senator is, not all the time, but 90% of the time, took my direction about the right way to approach this, given where things stood in the balance, et cetera, like that. So that said, I am careful not to criticize the senator. As I said, I want to believe that he cares about this. I don't think he comes of it with a bad heart or a bad intention. I think it would be not a good idea to sell off public lands to to people that have the means to privatize land in Wyoming. That would have a different implication than it would in Montana, et cetera. So,
yeah, it was a big issue, obviously, all throughout the West. Well, you brought
the
up
one thing I would say, since I think I'm a better hand at politics than fly fishing, if something nearly passes, don't assume that you're done. It's coming back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not one and done. One of the things about politics, it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah. We talk about that all the time, is that this is just the start of these efforts. And if people aren't paying attention and involved and monitoring what's going on.
Yeah. The one thing I can tell you about Senator Lee, he's not licking his wounds. He'll be back.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned a second ago about Montana's stream access law. It's something we're all very proud of out here. Probably the most progressive stream access law in the country, where, as you correctly mentioned, private property is private property, and that's very important. But the rivers, the navigable rivers and streams of Montana, are the property of the people of the state. And so therefore, as long as you're not trespassing to get into the riverbank, you're allowed to fish these waters. And it's something that has been the case here. It's in our state constitution. It's something that's very important to Montanans. You also mentioned that's not the case in most areas. It's different state by state.
Yeah, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, totally different from Montana.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been a major flashpoint in states all throughout the West. Being a landowner here in Montana on this phenomenal river, you're also an angler. You know the stream access laws. Can you share your perspective on the importance of balancing these private property rights with the public's right to access these navigable waters?
I'm not sucking up to Montana, but I'll suck up to Montana. I think they have the right balance, which is if you're floating down, the waters are public. Or if you're walking up, same thing. Where, yes, they're private in the sense they're within your property zone, but the public has access to them without, obviously, keyword here, trespassing.
Right.
So,
everybody needs to respect private property, no question.
There's, I can't think of how many times, there's another guy, fishing guide, Mike Greery, and I have done floats on the Ruby, and if it was private, that float would be like 3 feet. So to me, it's the right way to kind of approach it. Yeah, I think it's a healthy way to approach it.
It's worked for Montana.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, there are so many other issues and topics germane to fly fishing into the outdoors that we could cover. Whether it's climate change, ongoing funding for Land and Water Conservation Fund, the current efforts for the rollback of the wilderness rules, dam removal. I mean, the list is long, right? It's getting longer.
So let me go back to one of your earlier questions, but also an example. I get to Congress and I run on this as a punk called the Great Lakes Restoration Act, which was to set up a fund. I worked for President Clinton. We created the Everglades Restoration Fund. So I decided, well, I'm in the Great Lakes, greatest body of fresh water in the world. And Mike Pence and I, former vice president, talked about this. So anyway, I introduced it and get every Democrat and every Republican to sign on to the legislation. And while, again, I'm trying to flip the House to Democrat, I passed the bill and President Bush signs it into law. Again, political rivals, but not without the quality of respect. No disrespect there. So, and I happen to think ecologically, environmentally, it restored the Great Lakes. I think we put about $1 billion into it in ecological restoration. And there's big competitions up north I'm thinking Lake Michigan, particularly on walleye and pike and other types of fishing competition, wide-eye bass, et cetera. And that's important to the, for people that don't come to Montana to fish along the lake. Those are important ecological investments.
Absolutely.
That's why I say the public lands is a key piece. The investments you make in both the restoration and ecological balance is also a key piece.
Absolutely. And that was a big win, the
Yes.
Great Lakes Project.
Yes.
Big win. Well, I know that there's a lot of sportsmen, a lot of anglers, a lot of fly fishermen that feel like we're kind of under assault with a lot of the resource issues that our sport depends on right now with the current administration, with the current atmosphere in D.C. So here's my question. On Saturday, January 20th, 2029, at noon Eastern Standard Time, will President RAHM Emanuel solve each and every one of these issues on day one,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Day one. That's
okay,
the thing.
yeah.
A simple question.
Well, let me say this. If I do, it will be called Liberation Day. We have a long journey to go between then and there. So let me I don't want to fast forward and make a presumption about A, my decision, and B, my capacity.
Fair.
But if the lightning was to strike and Beethoven's Ninth was to play and the sun was to come through the clouds, I don't know about day one, but I'll always remember how important this is. But we got a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love it. Well, on that note,
But the one thing you can conclude, if I do it, it definitely will be called Liberation Day Part 2.
Right, you heard it here first.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it. I love it. Well, I know this is a question that gets asked in politics a lot about engaging younger voters, younger people in America. How do we get the next generation, especially kids and young people growing up in cities, more engaged with wild places, healthy rivers, the resources
I'm so glad
we all care
you
about?
said that. So I grew up in Chicago. If you go back to the original city plan at the turn of the century, it's called a two-waterfront city. We have this incredible lakefront, and you got to give the founding fathers of Chicago, Montgomery Ward, et cetera, they decide, and we're the only city on the Great Lakes, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Toronto, Milwaukee. There'll be no industrialization of the lakefront. It's the first environmental policy, at least in Chicago, I could argue, not knowing all the history, but in the United States. And the lake and public access will stay free and open. Our river, the Chicago River, becomes the industrial center with leather, tanneries, steel, lumber. And we could do what we did on the lake because of the river. But there was this original plan called the two waterfront. So when I'm running for mayor in 2011, if you're ever out on the campaign trail, you'll know what I mean. You get these rhetorical flourishes that just the moment takes you spiritually. And I said, the river will be the next recreational park of the city. Now, I don't know what the hell I said. And I don't even know what I meant what I said. Going back to the friend that just died, Paul was the only person that believed it wasn't crazy. The guy that I said that passed
Was the rest
away.
of your team being like, whoa, hold on a
No,
second.
everybody thought it was like something I would forget. Anyway, I fast forward to get through this anecdote or this story. There was always this debate, clean the river so people can go back. And my view was if you put people on the river, they'll demand that it gets clean. Now, the river was very polluted. We went from 80-plus species down to about 6. And it was polluted because of all the industrialization, et cetera. Fast forward, it's up to about 70-plus have been restored. But I believed if you put people on the rivers, canoeing, kayaking, and experiencing it, they would demand environmental. So we built 4 boathouses, 2 on the north branch, 2 on the south branch, and people started canoeing and kayaking. We built this river walk, passed an ordinance that if your riverfront was 25 feet, you did one of these 5 things. If it was 50 feet, you did 2 of the 5 things. You pick what you wanted, but it was for environmental restoration, et cetera. And let's say you had 100 feet, you had to do all 5, or whatever. I'm doing it by memory, so I don't. But the quality. About a month ago, 2,000 people swam the Chicago River. And trust me, when I was growing up, the only thing floating in the Chicago River was not alive, okay? And it's a testament to the environmental restoration. And all of that story was in our park district, we created an activity where kids would canoe part of the river and do environmental restoration as part of their activity. And I think there's a desperation, especially in urban areas, for not only desperation of movement also, to restoring some parts of their city for return to nature. And on the south end of the city, we took an old steel plant and restored the wetland part of it, and people that can afford to go to Michigan, Indiana, or up to upper part of Wisconsin could go 30-minute drive in the city and experience that same wetland experience in nature. And I think that's really important, just the exposure to it.
Building that connectivity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's wind things down around with some fun questions to get us back on,
I was
your
having
fishing.
fun.
No, these are fun questions and fun topics for sure. But back to your fishing, kind of some quick and easy answers. All right. So I'm going to throw something out. You give me the first answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. Without overthinking anything. All right. Favorite fly pattern of all time?
Favorite hatch or favorite fly pattern?
Fly pattern.
What do you?
Just the fly. Like if you could have one fly to fish the rest of your angling career. A hopper. All right.
Yeah, I love hoppers.
All right. Last piece of gear you bought at a fly shop?
A new pair of sunglasses.
There you go. What's worse, losing a permit you hooked, you've had them on, the fish comes unbuttoned, you've lost the fish, or watching someone else land one after you've gone all week without touching a single fish?
No, having one on the hook that gets away.
Okay.
Because you spend the rest of the time wondering what you did wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm supposed to give you the first thing, but I want to explain something.
Yeah.
That there is nothing more frustrating. Let's say I've had days where I caught 18. All you do is talk about the 19th one that got away. That is, it doesn't matter what happened on the first 18. It is your entire evening before you go to bed. You call your wife. Number 19, the one that got away. Why is that? Yeah, not the 18. It's the 19th. It is just obsessive.
It's eating you.
Yeah.
Well, who's someone you'd love to fish with but haven't yet?
Who is somebody I would like to fish with? I'd like to have the list of who is a fisherman, and then I could tell you that. I suppose Dwight Eisenhower.
Okay.
I'd like to. I think I like a lot of other presidents like Harry Truman, underappreciated at the time, and turns out to be a very significant president in American history. So Dwight Eisenhower.
He'd be fun to share a boat with, no doubt.
I don't know about that, but I'd like to fish with him.
You guys would be duking it out for the front of the boat, I'm guessing. Any chance, okay, let's put it this way. What percentage chance that we're going to see post-politics RAHM Emanuel jump into the guide game?
Very low.
Less than 2%?
Yeah, very low. That requires helping other people fish. I want to be very low.
Very low. All right.
In fact, zero.
Zero.
I'm ready to go out on that.
We're going to go zero on that.
I wouldn't recommend anybody having me guide them. That's a bad idea.
Well, like your wife on that first trip.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
All right. What's and you went through earlier these amazing places you've had a chance to fish and been lucky enough to visit in the past. What's one fishery, one species you're dying to get back to and repeat and do again?
Well, I want to go to, as I said, I want to go to Mongolia. So I would probably, as I said, I had to stick with what I said earlier, go back to Alaska.
Back to Alaska. Mm-hmm. There you go.
If nothing else, make the governor pay for what he promised.
Yeah, he owes you a trip.
He owes me a trip.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's listening.
Yeah, hopefully the governor is.
Okay, bonefish, tarpon, or permit. You can only pick one. What's it going to be?
Permit being here?
No, saltwater, if you're going to the flats.
I went to Belize.
Okay,
this is horrible. Because everybody tells me I'm an idiot. For a lot of different reasons, but on this one, I don't get it. Give me fly fishing versus tarpon or bone fishing. I must have had a bad experience, or I just suck, and that's possible. And that may be both of those at the same time. Wasn't my deal.
All right, fair enough.
I will tell you a funny story though on that trip.
Yeah.
So Paul and I are out on the water. Engine dies on the boat. Dies. And we're just bobbing. Boat goes by, flag it, get on. We get on the boat. And, you're out in the middle of the sun, a police hat, glasses, covered. And I'm listening to this voice. The other person on the other boat has a guide. I'm listening to their voice, and I go, I know that voice. Now, remember, we're in the police in the middle.
Out on the flats, middle of nowhere.
I kind of squint my right eye. I looked at him. I said, are you Senator Nunn? He goes, yeah. I take my glasses off. I go, Senator, it's RAHM. And there in the middle of the police is Senator Nunn with his daughter.
They rescued
Or
you.
granddaughter, rather.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rescued us. In the middle of the police. Go figure.
Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did not have a great experience. I got to do it again because everybody tells me I'm wrong. But give me Montana, Spring Creek, Madison, Missouri. So I don't know.
Well, the flats await. That's another chapter down the road for sure.
But I would say this. RAHM Emanuel doesn't need another obsession competing with this obsession. So that's not a good thing.
The saltwater world can be addictive too, for sure. All right, most important political skill that you've learned over all these years that also applies to fly fishing.
Most political. I know you don't want me to overthink this. Oh, I would say, well, I'm not. There are parts of fishing I'm good at, and parts of fishing that I excel at. I think Joe D would back me up on this. I have a keen sense on reading the water, and if you're going to do politics, you got to be able to read people. You got to have a really strong EQ. It's not IQ; it's EQ, and I think those skills, reading the water, is more of an E than an IQ. So those are where I would say are transferable.
I love that answer, actually.
Well,
yeah.
That's what I would, took me a second to think, but I think I'm not perfect, but I have maybe Joe would disagree, but I think I have a pretty good sense of how to read a river and the water. And I think in politics, to succeed, as I tell a dear friend all the time, if it's an intellectual exercise, this would be easy. Politics is an emotional and psychological exercise. That's why it's hard.
All right. Wading a river or fishing out of the front of a drift boat?
It's not close. That's not close. By then, if this coming at the end of the interview, you're wading a river. It's not at 99.9% of the time.
There you go. Favorite national park or public land you visited?
Oh, without Glacier.
Glacier.
Yeah.
All right. One word.
Although Glacier, we'll stick with that.
All right. One word that best describes your casting style.
Aggressive. No. Casting style. I don't know. That's probably better for some of the guides I've used to decide. I'm not really I don't step outside myself and look at them.
But we'll call Joe Dilschneider and ask him.
Have him
Fair enough.
weigh in on
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
How about the best?
Although it's definitely gotten better over time in the sense of both distance and accuracy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Best piece of fishing advice you've ever been given. And I ask you this because, you fished with a lot of the greats. Craig Matthews, obviously Joey D. Best piece of advice you've been given.
Oh, if you have one of those, we've all had that where you're just striking out. Literally, the stamina part of it, and then also accepting peacefully, not a very good quality for me. That's why they call it fishing. If I say, what am I doing wrong, Craig? I don't get it. You go, that's why they call it fishing. So accepting some days are good and some days are just meant to be.
All right, last question for you, Ram.
Okay.
One word to describe what fly fishing means to you.
I think it's spiritual. The word spirit. This is Ari and I, my younger brother, fight. A golf course is a man-made thing. I get the sense of trying to hit a ball to a hole, the skill, the kind of tactical, and it blocks out, and you're singularly focused on a singular task. But to be out like yesterday was not a great day for me. But I saw 2 bald eagles. And the water's rushing on you. It's just, there's nothing, it's a spiritual moment. And I've had time just this year, actually, not just down from where we are right now. Walking up, there's a little area, kind of, people don't get it, that float don't get to it because it's off to the side, but there's a rock there, a big rock. I'm coming up on the island that breaks off this channel, and all of a sudden bolts up a moose that had been sitting on the island. And I walk over because I'm not going to give up my hole for the moose, okay? I'm not that generous. And the moose makes it over to the bank. And I'm there casting this pretty good ripple stream between the bench, the island, where I know I can net one. And there's a moose up on the bench eating the leaves of a tree. And the water's just running. It's just, it is peaceful, but it's spiritual. And the moose is looking at me going, well, who's this schmuck? And I'm looking at the moose like, don't scare the goddamn fish, okay? Well, yeah, and we both had something to say to each other. And it's just, it's in a place that unless you experience it, I'm not sure I'm giving it justice. And so to me, spiritual, sublime when you're in a different moment, but it's something, and it's not, yes, I'm aggressive. I like the activity, how many you got, et cetera, or the 19th, the one that got away. But I would say when you're standing in the water's rushing on you, and there's a piece of nature, and you're trying to read that water, figure out whether you got the right fly, and then you get one. Hard to replace that moment with something else.
One of the things that makes the sport great.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you for this.
This has been great.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for making the trip out.
Well, good luck with the year ahead and the next few years. You got a lot on your plate and a lot of exciting things to come, and not reading anything into it or making any assumptions, but gosh, it would sure be nice to have a fly fishing back in the White House.
Yeah,
so
well,
good luck with everything.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
This is great. Well, that is it for this episode of Waypoints. Join us for our next episode, and remember, get out there, fish hard, and explore the world, because in the end, no one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel and adventure angling. Waypoints is produced by Brian Gregson and written by Jim Klug. Music is written and provided by bluegrass legend Woody Platt. Audio engineered by Sean McCormick. Visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more location profiles, destination information, travel news, and the industry's best selection of flies and equipment for destination angling.